Hey everybody, it's Mark from the Art Collective. I've always been a very big fan of Paul McCartney, and I've also been a really big fan of Culture of 2018. And so I'm really going to merge those two things into a classic tier list style video of the Paul McCartney album covers. Now, I have decided to judge these albums by their artistic album cover quality because I personally do not feel good enough to be judging them by their music, but I'll definitely touch a little bit on that. In this video, we are going to be looking at every Paul McCartney solo album, every Wings album, every compilation album, every live album. There might be some few, weird ones here and there that are missing, and that's okay. There is a heft into this discography. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. The first album, really, when we're looking at Paul McCartney's solo things, is famously The Family Way. If you do not know of this, it is a soundtrack that Paul did in the late 60s. Nothing too crazy. Haven't really listened to it myself, to be honest, but it's the first thing that shows up if you're going through the Paul McCartney Spotify stuff. Honestly, in terms of an album cover, it is really whatever. I guess it is cool that they've got the gender thing going on. They've got both of them up there. It's overall pretty good. But for the tiers that we're looking at, for the quality, the girth that we're looking at, it's probably going to be, honestly, an F tier. Moving on, we actually have the first ever Paul McCartney album as a solo artist. We are, of course, talking about McCartney 1, but at the time, it was just McCartney. Now, this is an album cover that is delicious. You look at it and you might not even know that it's a picture of berries, that his wife took. It's sort of got an otherworldliness about it. And honestly, great album, great photo. So I think that's going to have to be some A tiers. The next album we got up going on the board is going to be Ram. Now, Ram, of course, a classic, amazing album. A lot of recognition more in the modern times. When it was actually released, it was more critically panned, and people didn't like it due to an overall feeling of people not really liking Paul McCartney post the Beatles. A lot of people would blame him and such and such. But in any case, it's revered for its quality, its ingenuity, and it's actually the only album that Paul and Linda are co-accredited to in the entire time they work together as artists. Now, in terms of an actual album cover, I got a little too lost in the sauce there when it comes to the music, and we're here only to talk about the album covers itself. Just amazing. You're getting Paul on top of grabbing an actual ram by the horns. I mean, what else could you really want from there? He's looking dashing. There's some very great colorization going on. You've got the name of the album, Ram, right on there. So overall, I would also put that ahead in an A tier situation. Flap, everybody. It's time for Wings. Now we're first going to be talking, of course, about Wildlife, the first album from Wings. Now, not the greatest musically album, even though there's still some fantastic bangers in there. I really do enjoy the album cover. It is much more organic. It's just a simple photo, no words, no nothing, just the band at the time. Paul's standing in the water for some reason while the rest of the band are just sitting on a tree trunk, and he's got a guitar, and you're like, oh man, I'm worried he's gonna get that guitar wet. Just a lot of emotions really being brought out from that, and it really does encapsulate the title of Wildlife. That being said, I'd go ahead and put that at a B tier. Moving right forward fourth, we are next going to be talking about Red Rose Speedway, the second album from The Wings. Now, this one, I think it's a pretty whatever album cover. I think it's cool, I guess, that Paul can put a rose in his mouth. I like that he's by a motorcycle, but the whole over vibe just seems sort of weird and fake, and I don't know. It's not for me, and the mullet's not doing much, but still an all right concept. We haven't really jumped off the deep end in terms of Paul albums yet. So with that being said, I'd give it a C tier. Classic alert. We have finally reached Band on the Run. Everybody knows of this album in terms of Paul McCartney's solo career, or just Wings in general. You're going to be thinking of Band on the Run. Great album all the way through and through. Of course, they recorded it over in Africa, which is a really interesting thing. I believe it's where Paul decided to stop smoking cigarettes because he had a coughing fit in the recording studio. Fun fact for all you fans out there. Yeah, but overall, just looking at the actual album cover itself, I think it's pretty good. Going for that more of that Sgt. Pepper sort of style that we will see sometimes here and there with Paul and the ex-Beatles. It's weird, though, because a lot of people don't realize that, like, half these people, or more than, like, half these people are, like, not in Wings. Like, these are just some artist friends Paul had, and they're like, oh, we're all gonna get together. And I believe, like, the guy took the photo, like, did it with that weird colorization on accident, and then Paul was like, oh, that's really great. We've got to keep it like that. But it does really have that great vibe of a band on the run, so you can't really complain much. So with that being said, that's gotta be A tier material right there. Moving along, what is everybody's favorite two planets? Yes, for me, of course, it is Jupiter and Uranus, but Paul, he's more of a Venus and Mars guy. Now, this album cover, I think, is awesome. I think it's simple. I like the text. I like how weird and stylized it is. I like the two balls. I like the colors. I like everything about it. And frankly, weirdly enough, I would almost go ahead and put that as well as an A tier. Next up is Wings at the Speed of Sound. Now, this is a great album with a lot of Wings hits. Not personally one of my favorite. I still respect it a lot, being at the peak of Wingmania, as a lot of people do not call it. But this album cover, to be honest, you can see it's a little bit of a nothing. I think it just Wings at the Speed of Sound, and while simplicity is beautiful in its own right, I don't think it stands out too much, and I guess I like that it's real. They didn't just type, they couldn't have just typed it on a computer. It's still not incredible by any means, but I do like it, so I'll probably put it at a C tier. Next up, of course, is Wings Over America, the first live album, and of course, the first album to mention the greatest country in the world, America. Thank you. No, stop. Yeah, this is a cooler cover, I think, than some of the other ones in terms of the fact that it is a real picture of a plane. I think the lighting coming out of it is cool to signify, like, the wings are about to come out of this airplane, and that's cool. The text is better than some of the other text I didn't quite love as much on other records, and all in all, not too astounding, not too much of anything, but I will say that it is probably another C tier. So the next album is probably the only one that isn't by Paul McCartney. Of course, I'm talking about Thrillington by Percy J. Thrillington, famous composer, which is actually just a bunch of instrumentals, classical arrangements of the album Ram, which is really cool. And also, if you didn't know, just between us, it is Paul McCartney, all right? Like, he's trying to play a fast one on us, but I can see right through what he's trying to do. I get you. But all in all, with that said, I think it is a great album cover. I like that the Ram from the Ram album is now playing an instrument, showing a lot of character growth, a lot of change that I think is incredible. And I love that plant. Don't even get me started about that plant. This is some real S tier behavior right now. Bum 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 bum. That's the song London Town from the album London Town. Now this is a great album, in my opinion, a little underrated. It is a return to form in the sense that it is Denny Lane, Paul McCartney, and Linda back together in a trio. Now, honestly, with that all said, we're of course only talking about the covers, and this album cover is sort of whatever. I like that they're in London, very faithful to the name, but much like everybody online and a lot of true Paul fans, we much prefer the cover on the backside here, with the more tropical thing going on than the dreary, depressing, because it's not funny to depict London as being cold and drab. We know London's cold and drab, but it's funny when you are tropical, and it much more goes with the sound of the album, because I believe this is the album that they got a lot of inspiration by doing a lot of time on the boat. If you want to learn more about that, feel free to do that on your own time. But overall, I would go ahead and put that as an F tier. The next album we're talking about is our first compilation album cover, which I feel like, the compilations always get a little bit more. They get a little attention because it's got to signify the best. And, this is the Wings' greatest. And I really enjoy this album cover. I like the lady. I like her pose. I like that they put it into some snow. I think the text is good contrast with the blue background. I really enjoy this. And this was also, for me, little something, the album that got me into the Paul McCartney solo discography. So there's a little bias there, but this is, for me, another S tier. The next album is Back to the Egg. I think this album cover is great. I like that they're in a spaceship, but it seems to have a fireplace. I like that in the background you can see the woman statuette from, of course, another S tier right over there. And overall, I'm a big fan of the aesthetic of this, and I think this is another A tier. McCartney 2. This is an incredible album, the second in the trilogy. It is great. I like the photo. I like the yellow grains and overall aesthetic. I like his weird he's making this face. I don't even know why he's making that face. Paul, what's going on? Are you okay? And I think he's got a good hue to him. It sort of looks almost more Beatles-esque with the hair. It seems like he's got a double shadow going on. So I'm going to go ahead and also put that as an personal S tier, rather. The next album we are going to be looking at is Tug of War by Paul McCartney. This is the first album to come out after the death of John Lennon. It is a great album with a lot of amazing collaborative songs. Really great start of the 80s. Received very good ratings. And overall, I really like the album cover. I always felt like there was this sort of lingering sadness, and Paul's covering his ears, as if to sort of knock out the world, as there's this tug of war of his emotions and his ability to express that, and these great sort of Tetris piece aesthetics with the blue and the red. This is an S tier, frankly, and I don't know how we're gonna top that here in the 80s. I really wish I had a pipe for this one, but I do not do any woodwind instruments. But of course, we are talking about Pipes of Peace. Now, this is a follow-up to The Great Tug of War, and basically, generally, people say it's a lot of remnants and pieces and songs that didn't quite make Tug of War that went onto this album. That's not to say it's a bad album. I think it gets a little too much hate, but great overall. But again, I'm getting a little too lost and thinking too much about the songs and the cultures and stuff. We're talking about the album covers, and I'm going to focus on the album covers. Now, what people don't realize when they look at this, all these pipes on this album cover, they're to scale. Like, there's extra photos you can see that some of the pipes are huge, and that hand is a real hand coming into the album, and it's all to scale in this beautiful white void. The text is fine and simple, but I quite like the Pipes of Peace album cover just for the effort alone. I think it is a B. Give my regards to Broad Street was more of a film than an album that Paul McCartney released. I have the film. I do not know where it is, but I do have it on DVD. Thank you very much. It is not that great of a movie, and the album is also not that great, but there are some pretty good parts in there overall. But if we're just talking about the album cover itself, I don't know what's going on. There's like 3 different kinds of text on there. There's some neon glows. The guy in the cover, he's holding the master tapes, because if you don't know, in the movie, it's about this guy that works for Paul who loses the master tapes to their next album. It's like really meta. I don't know. It's a lot as a movie. And then Paul's doing like one of these. I don't know what that is. I don't know. I like his shirt, I guess. But seriously, I think this is pretty F-tier behavior as an album cover. Press to play. This album is pretty good. It is fine. I don't have a ton to think about it. But the album cover, on the other hand, pretty weird. That's not what Paul's hair looks like normally. So I don't know why it looks like that. It's all puff. There's you look at all of that. He never has that, and that's always thrown me off. And it's like a weirdly 80s, it's sort of cheesy. I don't know. It's nothing to me. This is an F. I don't have a lot to say about it. Did someone ask for another compilation album? Well, too bad. You got it. Now this is also another weird photo of Paul. He had a little phase where the hair got a little shorter. I don't know. It's not my favorite. As a famous McBeardy stan, we'll come back to that. Or this guy over there. You see him? That's Paul. I haven't mentioned that. That's a Lego piece of Paul McCartney. Very cool. Very collectible. Anyway, this album cover, it's okay. I think the red text is pretty bold, and the photo is whatever, as he does one of, he's, one of these. The only thing I really like about it is that there is all these weird illustrations and logos to some of the famous songs. There's an actual band on the run on there. You see My Love with a little kiss and stuff like that, and those are cute, but they have too little of them, and there's just a lot going on, and it's sort of whatever. So I'll probably put it as a C. It would be an F for me if it weren't for the little guys up there. The next album we are looking at is Chopo B. I don't really know. The whole bit is it's sort of like a bootleg album situation where really it's just an official album where Paul does covers of classic rock songs from the 50s that really meant a lot to him. I honestly sort of think the aesthetic's pretty cute. I think it's got this sort of Russian Soviet thing going on for it. It looks nice. I don't think it's anything crazy, but I would go ahead and put it as a B. Next up, we have Flowers in the Dirt. Great album, I believe something I read once when I read my Paul McCartney book is that he claimed this to be the only album that was poet approved because he had like some poetry friends read all the lyrics and go, "Oh yeah, Paul, this is really poetical. You nailed it."
Editing mark here. That is actually wrong. That is in reference to the album Off the Ground, not this album. Continue on.
And I do think there are some really great songs on there. I really like, "Give Me Your Hand," not "Give Me Your Hand," give me your. But yeah, there's a bunch of incredible, great songs on the album, honestly. I liked some of the demos personally he was doing with Elvis Costello, and some of that didn't actually make it in, but, what are you going to do? The album cover itself, I actually think it's trying a little too hard to be a little too artistic, much like the poetry thing. It's cool that there are actual flowers in the dirt, if you will call what is going on in the background dirt. I think it is fine. That is what I will say about it. This is yet another B tier situation. You know what? F- that. This is a C tier. Just a little. Next up, we have Tripping the Live. Fantastic. Another live album. Awesome. This actually was the concert tour where Paul started bringing in his Beatles collections back to the stage. So it was actually really well perceived and really great tour. But the cover itself, I don't know what's going on here. It's like, from the weird, like Comic Sans swivelly rainbow Instagram ass text down to the word highlights exclamation point just thrown on the bottom, and of course his famous bass guitar being all out of focus. If I saw this on a store, I would be just bamboozled. This is like the absolute worst thing Paul has done, and frankly, I don't know what you were thinking. I'm looking at you. So that's going to be a straight up F. Next up, we are going to be looking at the Liverpool Oratorio, Paul's first foray into classical music with an orchestra at a cathedral. Very nice, cool. He's going to do more of that because, I guess he's never happy too much with one of anything. And this album cover, by the way, a little wordy for me. I guess that is more common with classical music. They got to do all the accreditation and such. Those people on the front, I don't know what they're owing about, It's weird. It's gold. It's fine. It's a C. Do you like feet? I'm not that much into it myself, but Paul's album Off the Ground sure likes it, which is also a pretty good album. I think so. The album cover itself, I like how simple it is. It's a little weird that Paul's name is divided up between feet, which is fine, I guess, contextually. Not everything has to be a weird thing that people want to make it. I think this makes sense in the context, but still overall, I mean, the colors are good. It has this ethereal feeling, but it's still to me more of a B tier situation. Paul is live. Finally, we have a Paul live compilation album that I really enjoy. I think much unlike the last one, there is some real intention behind here, and it's not a bunch of fucking nonsense. No offense down there, Tripping the Live, fantastic. This is a great play off, of course, the Paul is Dead conspiracy theory. And, there's a lot of great subtle playoffs. You see Paul on Abbey Road again. The car is like a reference to him being alive. Chock full of Easter eggs. The dog Martha is there, which always an incredible treat, from the song Martha, My Dear. Boom. Love this so much. I think it's fun. I think it's just the right amount of self-indulgence. So I'm going to go ahead and give that an A. Next up is the color red and the word strawberries, but not all of the word strawberries. It is the album Strawberries, Oceans, Ships, Forest. What a title. This is the first of the releases with The Fireman, which is Paul McCartney and his DJ friend Youth. This is a sort of another whatever. I don't have a ton to say about it. I guess I like it a little bit more than some of the stuff on the bottom of the list down there because it's trying something different. So I'm actually going to give it a C, which seems weird, but red. Next, we have Flaming Pie, a great return to form album for Paul McCartney, which has a little bit more of that Beatles sort of vibe going on after the work with the anthology series for the Beatles, produced by Jeff Lynne, which is sort of fun. I think it is a great album cover. I mean, not great, but I like the picture. I like its like blurriness aesthetic. I like the little flaming pie on the corner. I like the words flaming pie and the text kind of style. I like the fact that Paul McCartney is a completely different text but small, and under it, this to me is another 8 here. I hope you guys like more of Paul's orchestra stuff because it's Standing Stone, which I think is a cooler title, honestly. And honestly, as well, in addition, earnestly, pretty cool album cover. I like the text and its multitude of dots. I like the stone in that it is indeed standing. I like the sunset. I like most of it. It is not incredible by any means, but it is a solid B. Hey, they were able to get a full word on there without it being cut out. Next is Rushes by The Fireman, the second of the 3. This is another great little ditty of an album. I think the album cover is fine. It looks like, I believe, some sort of mail container or news container with nice crumbling red, a little bit more detail to the color red. I hope we get more of that. It looks like they put the word The Fireman on there with the least amount of effort, and I love that. It's almost sort of Comic Sans-y. So I would go ahead and put this as a B. Try to stop me. I love drugstores. So when I see this album cover, I go, fantastic. I don't quite like the actual album that much because I'm not too much into hard rock or more of his covers of that genre. But the album itself, the cover is cool. I think it is great. It is a solid photograph. I like that it says spiritual products. I love clearance sales. So I can't give it anything else other than a C. Next, we have, of course, another classical album, this time with at least 50% Paul on the cover, and he's doing what, I don't know. Some of these faces he's doing, they're pretty on point. This album cover is whatever to me. I like the gear. That's about it. And the Paul face. Don't get me wrong. This is going to be another F for me just because I don't have much to say about it and it doesn't have any huge redeeming factors, The next is Liverpool Sound Collage. This is a weird album cover situation. It is I believe, collection of remixes and DJ edits of some of Paul's songs by a DJ that I believe used to open for him in, I think it was one of his tours in the early 2000s.
Mark here again. I was wrong about this album as well. This is a sound collage album that was made to accompany an art exhibit McCartney was working on. It is made with Super Fury Animals and Youth, and I was referring to an album that we will be seeing later down in the video. Thanks.
The album itself, there's goat on it. I think I like that. The text is fun. It's artistic. It's trying something different. It's okay. It's for me as we all know, that means a C, which is tough because, we're starting, if you notice over here, we're wrapping around the other way of the wall, which is fine. We love this. If you didn't understand just then, I was doing this album art. Wingspan, Hits in History, another compilation album. I love this album art. I love that it's doing the Wings thing that they tried to make a thing, and I don't know how much of a thing it became, but I don't think it was that much of a thing. In any case, I like it. I like the colors. I like the text. I like the songs they put on it. It's got solo and Wings stuff. The name, it's great because it's Wingspan, Hits and History. Everything you could want. This is honestly gonna be hot. This is gonna be another S tier for me. I know, crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's Driving Rain time. I like this album. I like this album art. I like the little hand that we're going on there. And if you can't tell, that person on the cover, yeah, that's Paul McCartney. He was in the Beatles. I think people say it was a Game Boy camera, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I think it was this right here. I'll put the information on the video. But I still think it's got a great artistic value to it. And for me, it is a solid B tier album cover. Next up, we are back with another live album, and don't worry, guys, another mention of America. Stop. It's too much. This is a pretty good album cover, and that's about all I think. I like the American themes. They also have the world version, but I'm not talking about that because I only care about America. I like his little American flag, undershirt. And that's really all I super think about it. Overall, it's not an F, but it's definitely a C. I gotta be honest with you guys. If you remember just a few minutes ago when I was talking about Liverpool Sound Collage, it is I believe, collection of remixes and DJ edits of some of Paul's songs by a DJ that I believe used to open for him in I think it was one of his tours in the early 2000s. Everything I said there actually applies to the album Twin Freaks, and I just didn't get my facts in order. This was the actual reworks of Paul music into sort of unrecognizable forms. So my apologies. Moving on to the album art. I don't know what's going on there, but I like it a little. So that, for me, means it is a B tier. Next, we are moving to my favorite album of all time, my favorite Paul album, my favorite anything. It's Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. I think this is an incredible album with a soundscape that is just perfect through and through, with a very consistent tone and themes of heartbreak, loss, and just everything about it is very great to me. It's one of the few I own on both CD and vinyl because I like the art so much, which, as you know, this is just a solid photo of Paul when he was young in his backyard, taken by his brother, known as McGear, or, his other name, which I'm not even going to bother saying. And I think this is, incredible. It's just an album cover, so striking. It does it perfect. To me, this is another S tier. Hey, more classical album. This one is pretty good as an album cover because all the text is the same font and it's got the McCartney logo right on front. I have nothing more to say. It is another C as the wall continues to drift further and further that direction. What was the name of this one again? Sorry, my memory's almost full. That's right, it's memory almost full if you were a fan of the color pink and a couch. Not a couch, I'm so sorry. an armchair, I believe. Well, in any case, I think this is fine. I want to put it in a C, but the things keep going on in that direction. And frankly, the album is so good and I like it so much that to me, this is a solid B tier album art. Hey, and we are finally on to the last of the Fireman albums. And, as the trend continues, this one has the least amount of red, but the Comic Sans continues. And this one, hey, they put the title on this. And the two people on it, Paul McCartney and Youth, they put their names on it. It's really crazy in that regard. I actually like it. I think this is cool. I think the text is still bold, but a little, I guess it's their thing now. So whatever. I think this is another solid A tier album cover. All right, we are back with another live album. This one called Good Evening New York City. Not quite an America reference, but still good enough to keep me happy and engaged. I like that Paul's doing, like one of these, but still a pretty uninspired album cover overall. We're seeing a lot more in this era of Paul just signing his name on these things, which is cool and fine, and I like it. But I think the album cover is pretty F tier behavior. Nothing too good, but it's a little disappointing after, we had Paul Was Live, which was, such a masterpiece, So I'm putting it at F. Last up is the final of Paul McCartney's classical albums. Again, all these things I haven't really listened too much. I've heard bits and pieces, but not quite for me. But I like this cover a lot. I like what it's building on. I can get the idea of what the orchestra is all about. I get the vibe. There's like this under ocean kingdom. Ocean's Kingdom's the name, famously. But I really like the lights and I think it sets an atmosphere is all I'm trying to say. So I really do think it's going to be another A tier. Kisses on the bottom. Hey, I've said a lot recently about how I'm not that big of a fan of the classic rock cover albums, but this is not classic rock. It's jazz, and I love this album. This is the only album I will listen to if I need to study for exams or do any functional work. I only listen to this album. I think it is great. The album cover, though, it's whatever. I think it's fine. And if you notice, yet again, put in that freaking Paul McCartney signature on there, plus a little XXX, which I think is kiss, kiss, kiss. In any case, this to me is another F. Love the album. This is just, I don't know. It's nothing. Next up is New, a 2013 album, which maybe was new then, but now, much like New Super Mario Bros. For the Wii, is old. But the album cover is gold. I honestly do think that. The simplistic use of lights, making out the word new, the bonus editions with different colors on the lights, the wet ground, everything about it is awesome and classic Paul McCartney, but not at all classic Paul McCartney. If you know what I mean, no you don't. This is an S tier. Hey, we love beards in this household. And nothing is better than Paul McCartney with a beard. He does not grow it enough. He grew it in the late 70s, and it lasted for like a year or two, and then he never did it again. And I don't know why, because McBeardy Stan, I am. And this album is my favorite compilation album. And the way he's just looking like, that's the best Paul look he's done, all of them, besides, of course, the McCartney 2 one. I think this is great. I think this is yet another S-tier album cover. Next up is Egypt Station. This was the first Paul McCartney album to come out that I was able to listen to on release as an active fan, coming out, when I was 18 and ready to absorb it. I think this is a great piece. This is based off one of Paul McCartney's paintings or guess it's more of a collage that they juiced up to be an album cover, which I think is really cool in that regard. I think honestly it is probably one of the best like uses of Paul's art, plus a little bit of like studio magic to make a work that's great. And if you also notice, another one with a goat or ram maybe on the cover. So with that being said, Egypt Station gonna be another S. We'll see if we're gonna be able to carry on this great lineup we've been hitting recently. Next up is Amoeba Gig, which is a live recording from many years ago. I think like 2005 or something, like this. And they put it into a live album. I think the album cover is whatever. It doesn't quite hit the vibe like the other blurry cameras, like in Driving Rain. I think it just sort of looks bad. And yet another one where he's just throwing his signature on there. Very big into that at this era. So this is, to me, it's going to be another F. It brings about nothing in me, unlike, some of the other great pieces, Next up is McCartney 3, the third in the McCartney trilogy, and the last as of now. I like this album a lot. It was made in Rockdown, as Paul likes to call it, which is pretty good as COVID albums go. He doesn't linger too much on it being all about COVID. I don't think he mentions it at all, which is good, because unless you're Bo Burnham, you shouldn't talk about it. And overall, the album cover, I like the dice, good dice. I like the logo. I like it a lot. To me, this is another solid B. What?
Was it another solid B?
Another solid B.
That's A. Idiot.
We'll just take it down for this part. Next up, we have McCartney 3 Imagined. If you liked McCartney but wanted it to be done by different artists, this is the album for you. They took the dice and really took it a step back in terms of the album cover. More shadow, more numbers. I see a 5, I see a 1. Crazy maneuvers, but probably not as good as the simple McCartney 3. This to me is maybe a C tier at best. Last and not least in this incredible journey is One-Handed Clapping. This is a re-release of some live songs and cut songs from the Wings era, and I really enjoy it as an album, but again, as we've said the whole time, not what it's about. I like this album cover a lot. The little angel thing, pretty cool. The headset, I like. And the idea of a one-hand clap, how do you even do that? Makes me think all the time. I'm thinking about it weekly, honestly. This to me is another B tier.
That is probably the worst album.
In S tier, we have Thrillington, Wings' Greatest, McCartney 2, Tug of War, Wingspan Hits and History, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, New, Pure McCartney, and Egypt Station. In A tier, we have McCartney, Ram, Band on the Run, Venus and Mars, Back to the Egg, Paul is Live, Flaming Pie, Electric Arguments, and Ocean's Kingdom. In B tier, we have Wildlife, Pipes of Peace, the Russian album, Off the Ground, Standing Stone, Rushes, Driving Rain, Twin Freaks, Memory Almost Full, McCartney 3, and One Hand Clapping. In C tier, we have Red Rose Speedway, Wings at the Speed of Sound, Wings Over America, All the Best, Flowers in the Dirt, Liverpool Oratorio, Strawberries Ocean Ships Forest, Run Devil Run, Liverpool Sound Collage, Back in the US, Ecce Cor Mia, and McCartney 3 Imagined. In F tier, we have The Family Way, London Town, Give My Regards to Broad Street, Press to Play, Tripping the Live Fantastic, Working Classical, Good Evening New York City, Kisses on the Bottom, and Amoeba Gig. Well, there we are. We've made it through all 52 album covers ranked on a great tier list. I was super excited to be able to take this journey with you guys. But before I let everyone go, I would like to go over a few statistics that I think are worth knowing about. What are you doing? So, of the 52 album covers, only 44.5 had words. 43.25 had the album name on the cover. There was a total of 27 of the albums that featured human beings on the album cover, with a total of 57 total people making an appearance on the album cover, with 22 of those people being Paul McCartney himself. So, he's a little less than half of the people that have showed up on the album covers. In addition, there were 13 non-humans that showed up, much like this thing here. Of those 13 non-humans, 4 were rams, 1 was a demon, 1 was an angel thing, 4 were living instruments, 1 was a plant, 1 was an Egyptian cat, and 1 was the dog, Martha. And finally, the most important statistic, really lock in here with me, was that there was indeed 20 feet in the entire discography. I'm not going to show you the feet. You're going to have to go and do that on your own time. Well, there you have it. We finally come to a bit of a conclusion here. A huge thank you to Paul McCartney. His music and his art has always meant so much to me, so I really enjoyed doing this project. If you have any time, I do recommend checking out some more of his deep cut projects and songs, because I think they're just as rewarding as the ones everyone knows. If you enjoyed this project, please feel free to let me know, and I would be very excited to be doing more of this. So with all that said, thank you everybody for watching, and have a great day.